G'day and welcome back to Mick's Mechanical. I'm Mick, if you hadn't guessed, and this is another episode of Spanner Talk. Today's topic is diagnosing a faulty ratchet. Today I've got my caliber 1/4 inch drive ratchet handle here that I've had since I started my apprenticeship. I bought this in a kit from Super Cheap Auto for about $130. Came with 1/2 inch drive and 1/4 inch drive, and they're a really nice ratchet. Unfortunately, caliber tools don't exist anymore. They replaced them with Tool Pro, which isn't anywhere near as good. But this has been a really good little ratchet, but it's going to work now that I'm trying to demonstrate it. It normally skips. When you try to put force on it to undo something, it'll skip over the ratchet, but of course right now it's working beautifully, even though it's been buggering up for a long time. But anyhow, despite it working nicely now, we're going to pull it apart and have a look inside and try to see what the problem is and see if I can fix it. This does have it did come with a lifetime warranty, but I don't have the receipt anymore, and seeing as caliber doesn't exist, I don't know if they'd even honour the warranty. They might try to give me a Tool Pro replacement, but I'm just going to try to fix it myself, and if not, we'll go from there. So, all that holds a serviceable ratchet head together generally are 3 screws, and this one it's a Torx bit. To be precise, it's a T8 I think Torx bit that is. That holds these together, so we're just going to pop out. This screw here is attached to the selector switch, and these 2 screws on this side hold the mechanism in. So first I'll take out the screw that holds the selector switch in, and as I'm taking that out, as you can see, that selector switch is moving, so I'll just keep my finger on there and take that screw out. That screws out, I'll put that on the bench. Now I'll just carefully see if I can see that selector switch is coming out, so we'll just carefully pull that out. There it is, our selector switch. It's got a triangular shape there. That'll go over on the bench. Now we're going to undo our, you can see through the middle there, see daylight. Now we'll pull out our 2 screws on the front. Okay, now all our screws are out. I should be able to grab hold of the drive, carefully pull the guts out. Just got to be careful because there are springs inside here. So there's the face plate. We'll just put that over to the side. Inside we've got our gear on the ratchet and then our 2 pawls, and you can see that spring hanging out. So there's our gear with the drive on it and the quick release button, and there is a small washer or small like a shim there as well. We don't want to lose that, that's important. Put that to the side. Of course, I've just dropped everything on the floor. Okay, now I've picked up everything off the floor, we can continue. So I removed this pawl from. Now, on the right hand side we've got the second pawl and that spring there, which is sort of popped out of place pawl out. There's the second pawl. And I've just dropped the spring on the floor, of course, so I'll just go searching for that again. Okay, now that I've found that spring, again, we've got all the pieces here on the bench. So now that we've got it apart, what I need to do is inspect this ratchet gear here for tooth wear to try to work out why it's actually skipping over while I'm using it. And looking at it, I can see that it is worn, but there doesn't appear to be any damaged teeth. And now we'll look at the pawls. So the way it works, these two pawls also have teeth on them, and those teeth engage on the ratchet gear like so. So when you're ratcheting, it'll ratchet, and when you turn the other way, it'll grab on the tooth and it will turn, and it'll ratchet again, grab on the tooth and turn your bolt. So these teeth need to comfortably engage with this gear. Now, looking at my pawls here and just trying them on the ratchet, they engage nicely. There's no damage there. In fact, there's very little wear. So what I'm going to do, because I haven't seen any damage, is I'm going to lubricate the parts. I'm going to put the ratchet back together and see how it works. I've just got a little bit of bearing grease here. You don't need much to lubricate one of these. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of grease to the ratchet there. Just enough to give it a gentle coating. There we are, just a bit of bearing grease on there. I'm just going to wipe a little bit on the teeth of my pawls, and just on the ends, the other opposite end of them where they pivot in their home there. Just a little bit of grease on there to lubricate them, to help with wear. And now I'll put it back together. So we get our ratchet gear, that goes back inside the head, like so. Now this will be the fiddly bit. I've got to install these pawls. Firstly, you've got to make sure that you put them in the right way. So, just grabbed a little flathead screwdriver to help with the installation of this pawl, because that little cam has to go inside the groove, which is a little tricky to do by hand. Make sure we don't lose that shim. So now our first pawl is just sitting there nicely in place. Now I have to put the second one in with the spring. So our pawl is just back into place there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to push this over and pop this spring in. Okay, it was pretty fiddly putting that spring back into place. I had to use two little flathead screwdrivers to get it in, but there it is, back up against that pawl, with the large end, with the wide end against the outside of the ratchet head. Now that all that's back into position, we're going to pop the selector switch back in on this side, just carefully, so as not to push anything out of the road. as I push that in. Okay, I've got that in now. Now I'm just going to hold that in with my finger and place the cover back on. Just remembering which way it goes. We've got the countersink there, so that goes to the outside. It pops back into place. We won't do them up tight yet, we'll just put them in gently. Okay. Now we'll just install our selector switch screw, remembering to keep the finger on the selector switch to hold it in place. And drop the screw on the floor for the third or fourth time. Try again. Hold the finger on the selector switch, screw in. And we'll just gently run that in, making sure not to cross thread. And as I wind that in, it's wanting to turn the selector switch. So just make sure to keep firm pressure on that switch so it doesn't end up in the wrong position. So we do this up. Snip that gently. Now I'll tighten our two screws on the front. Remembering not to go too tight because they are tiny little screws and they're also a Torx head. So you don't want to strip out that Torx because it's a total pain to get out again. That's nipped up nice and tight. Now we'll make sure our switch. Now what I've done here is I've done it too tight. Now the selector doesn't want to move. I'm just going to back that off a little. There we go. So I buggered it up the first time and I lost one of our springs. There's actually two of them. So I'll put our second spring in place so that the mechanism actually works, because with one spring there's no way it's going to work. Now, very carefully reinstall the spring in an effort to avoid losing it yet again. And there it is. Spring in there. Spring in there. Okay. So you can't hear it very well because I've filled it with grease. But the ratchet mechanism is now working nicely in both directions. So I believe the problem before was this screw was probably a little too loose, which was not helping the selection and the lack of lubrication. But now that it's got grease in there and I've tightened those screws up properly to the right setting, you don't want that too tight, but you also don't want it too loose. So now it's working nicely. So I won't be having to take that back for a warranty claim. That's how you pull apart a ratchet. Check out the parts, grease it and put it back together. Pretty simple job. Can help your ratchets last longer if you check them out and lubricate them. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with another episode of Spanner Talk soon. See you later.